Upon waking, the reminder that words, however well meant, drift with the wind, if sweetness in practice is absent, returns as a quiet invitation. The world does not need promises well articulated, grand plans, or speeches that try to seize the heart. The world needs, above all, actions that blossom in daily life, simple gestures that reveal what already resides in our deepest intention. And it is in that space between thinking and doing that lies the seed of everything we can truly offer to the people who cross our path. If this reflection touched you, subscribe to Daily Reflections for Life. Perhaps the secret lies in offering to another what we ourselves long to receive when we have lost touch with ourselves. A look that does not judge, a word that does not wound nor humiliate, a presence that transforms distance into closeness. It is not about perfection, nor a collection of extraordinary deeds. It is about consistency, a cadence of attitudes that, added up over days, reveal the character we seek to cultivate. When you choose to act with kindness where life places you, you are, in practice, making tangible the central idea of all ethics: to treat the other with dignity, because they are a being worthy of care, just as you are. There are those who think that the greatness of a conviction is measured by the force of a speech, and in a sense, this may briefly seize attention. But what fixes a lasting impression is not the shine of a talk, no matter how eloquent, but the steadiness of someone who practices what they say. In every ordinary gesture, there is an opportunity to make visible what you intend to defend: hope, justice, compassion, the courage to remain steady when everything seems to demand another answer. A small act of patience in the face of someone's hurry, a pause to listen without interrupting, a hug that promises nothing beyond shared time, a hand offered to carry a heavy bag, a silence that welcomes pain without resorting to easy solutions. It is these actions, repeated naturally, that dissolve the distance between what we think and what we show to the world. One does not need a high position, a powerful voice, or visibility that overshadows humility. True leadership is not displayed on stages, but lived in the corners of the home, in the daily work, in the streets, in the neighborhoods where each person wrestles with their own shadows. When someone chooses to act with integrity in ordinary moments, that someone transforms the ordinary into something sacred, not by ceremony, but by the consistency of a life aligned with what one believes. And, surprisingly, that coherence does not fade in the face of adversity. On the contrary, it reveals itself more resilient when we face fatigue, irritation, the temptation to take advantage, or to place ourselves above the other. The steady practice shows that values are not merely a set of pretty ideas, but a practice that is revealed in the cadence of time and in every decision. When we choose to act, we also open space for the other to exist in their fullness, with their flaws and their beauties. Life teaches that no one is ever fully ready to be what they intend, and yet what we do may be enough to kindle a spark of change in another person. Sometimes the effect of a small action travels across generations. The act of listening attentively might awaken in the listener's grandchild the courage to ask more human questions. The act of forgiving can free someone from the belief that life cannot be renewed, no matter the scars of the past. And this movement has no end. It multiplies in waves, gently, persistently, spreading through the city, through family life, through the closeness among colleagues, through the hands of neighbors who, when they understand each other, discover they can care for one another. There's also the courage to acknowledge that we are not always at the moment to act with kindness. Some days the irritation weighs more than the will to be gentle. In those times, the wiser practice is to return to the basics. Breathe, acknowledge the mistake without excuses, apologize when necessary, and begin again with patience. It is not perfection that transforms, but the repetition of humble choices, even when the ego tries to pull us toward the center. Life, in its insistence, reminds us that what we cultivate inside, in silence, will reflect in the world without needing to announce every small step. The secret is not to abandon the posture we chose when everything seems to conspire against it. Keep compassion as a compass, integrity as an anchor, the curiosity to understand before judging. The way we treat people in silence reveals what we truly feel about them. When someone faces a difficult situation, what you do can be more instructive than what you say. An ear that does not rush to offer ready-made solutions, but stays present to listen. Hands that help without humiliating. Words that acknowledge pain without wringing pride. These attitudes are not performances of an ideal character, but manifestations of a humanity that recognizes life as a canvas of diverse colors. All valid, all worthy of respect. And by respecting the other, you also respect yourself, because human coexistence is a school where each learns to handle vulnerability without cloaking it in bravado. There is a particularly powerful dimension. It inaugurates a culture of trust. When people see that their words, their feelings, and their actions remain coherent, they feel safe to express who they are, to take risks, to experiment, to confess a fall and rise again. Trust built this way does not depend on big contracts or grand promises. It is born from the everyday, from repeated care, from the willingness not to abandon the other when they fail, from the certainty that each person carries a dignity that deserves recognition even when they do not meet expectations. And trust, once rooted, transforms the community not by imposing a norm, but by revealing a common language of respect, support, cooperation, a life open to the common good without requiring applause. Along this path of actions aligned with values, we are called to question what we call success. Success, in these terms, is not the achievement of brilliant results or the accumulation of advantages. It is, above all, the quality of our presence for others. What ceases to be mere performance becomes a practice of living together that does not tire, that does not imprison, that does not seek recognition. True triumph appears in how someone remains steady under pressure and continues to offer their best. Patience when life is overwhelming, courage when pain seems larger than strength, kindness even when the easiest answer would be otherwise. When someone chooses to stay faithful to this pattern, no matter the pace at which they move, what matters is the axis that remains firm. And this axis, cultivated by many, makes the collective road lighter, more humane, closer to what we call good coexistence. The daily practice of cultivating good habits of living together is not merely a matter of willpower, but of attention that becomes habit. It begins with gestures that may seem small, but in the fabric of shared life, prove fundamental. For example, listening to the other without preparing a reply while they speak, simply to validate their space to speak, or offering our time, which is our most precious currency, without expecting any return, or choosing to give back a sincere smile to someone who bears the weight of the day, so they know they are not alone. These simple actions, repeated with care, help us believe that kindness is not an exception, in the words of a few, but a common practice among people who want to live well with their humanity. The truth that doing good is not a campaign of advertisement, but a quiet practice, gains even more when we look at children, who learn more by example than by explanation. When a father, a mother, a teacher, a neighbor quietly does what is right, without commodifying kindness or seeking others' approval, they plant a seed that may germinate many years later in those who observe, and by seeing this living model, the child learns to choose with the same care their own words and actions, even when there are no adults nearby to correct or guide. What is transmitted is not only a theory, but a heritage of a way of being in the world, a way to respond to challenges with serenity, not letting urgency overwhelm, not letting criticism override hope. In this moment, what seemed to be simple neighborly coexistence can become a bridge to a community held together by the delicacy of small attitudes repeated with love. There is also a dimension of wisdom not found in the loudest ads nor in most inflamed discourses. The humility of not considering oneself superior to others, the courage to own when one is wrong, the willingness to apologize, and, more importantly, the decision not to repeat the mistake once it is seen. Humility is not weakness, it is clarity of vision. It allows one to accept what one does not know, to welcome criticism without resentment, to learn from one's limitations. And this humility, applied to daily life, transforms the relationship with others into a laboratory of growth. Instead of seeking perfection, we seek continual improvement. That small progress that does not call attention to itself, but gradually transforms the ways we relate. Under this light, each simple act stops being merely a good intention and becomes a conscious practice of coexistence that respects the other's time, that does not impose, that offers space, that invites without suffocating. While we continue on this path of actions that speak louder than words, we also learn to accept that not everyone will perceive or value these gestures in the same way. We may, at times, scatter seeds that not everyone will see germinate, or receive feedback that seems more critical than constructive. In these moments, fidelity to one's own practice is often what sustains continuity, because the meaning of life is not simply to be seen doing good, but to keep the inner commitment that goodness is the direction of who we are, regardless of applause or external recognition. True influence is not measured by the lens of popularity, but by the staying power of what we leave engraved, even if quietly, in the soul of people. When this legacy is honest, it does not fade with time. It strengthens with every new day when someone chooses to act with dignity. The practice of good, then, is not a series of isolated deeds, but a way of being in the world anchored in small, repeated gestures. It can be the affection with which we welcome someone at home, the attention to the details of daily life that show we think of the other before acting, the kindness of not imposing our truth as if it were the only truth, the patience that avoids letting frustration lead us to harm. In each of these attitudes lies the possibility of opening space for the other to perceive that they are not alone, that someone chooses to stay firm on the human side of life when everything seems to push back. And it is in this space of presence that the world transforms, without the transformation being announced as a revolution. Room to room, street to street, corner to corner, coexistence becomes a texture of care and trust that sustains the hope that life can be good tomorrow as well. When life presents moments of trial, it also offers the opportunity to demonstrate with actions what we already know, even if this is not the easiest choice. Sometimes the simplest decision is the one that heals, a sincere apology, the repair of harm without waiting for restitution, forgiveness that disarms anger, the patience that disarms the impulse to judge. In each of these choices lies the strength of a heart that does not let bitterness consume it, that prefers to keep the channel of kindness open, even as the waters around us grow turbulent. And by keeping this channel open, we learn that life reveals itself, not only in what we build, but in what we can avoid destroying. The harmony that endures when there is no need to prove anything to anyone. Only the conviction that goodness is a language that can be understood by all, if they are willing to speak it without aggression, with simplicity, with a soft voice that reaches ears clearly and with kindness. In the end, what remains is not the grandeur of a well-constructed speech, but the warmth of a meeting that happens without asking to be remembered. It is not the strength of a promise, but the constancy of a practice that transforms daily life into a space of meeting, understanding, healing. When someone decides that their days will be clearly and quietly, a constant sending of attitudes that recognize the dignity of the other. That person becomes a presence that does not need to announce anything to be felt. Each day, the commitment to choosing what will contribute to the common good strengthens, not by duty, but by gratitude to life that allows that. Even in the smallest actions, there is the possibility to touch someone with the tenderness of a hand offered. So may we choose to act in every opportunity that presents itself without waiting for the world to recognize, without demanding that the voice rise to confirm that we are right. May our way of being be enough for others to discover through it that it is worth waiting for the simple present of a calm word, of a presence that does not demand anything, of a care that does not seek profit. And that, as we do this, we discover that life reveals itself day after day in what we make common: caring for others, honesty with ourselves, willingness to learn from every challenge, the courage to continue when everything seems to ask for another answer. In this simple walk, the true message becomes heard without rehearsed words. Life is not only about what we think, but above all, about what we choose to do with what we think. Therefore, may each dawn bring the reminder that a minimal gesture, practiced with serene purpose, can cross distance and touch the heart of someone. May we choose, today and always, to be the presence that the other finds when needing a shoulder, a word, a hand that holds with delicacy the weight of life. And when we look back, may we see not only our steps, but the invisible footprints that left a trail of trust, contained joy, networks of support that do not crumble at the first difficulty. With every small act of kindness, the world becomes a little more humane, a little closer to what we all desire to see, a society not ruled by haste, that does not turn differences into distance, that chooses the life of those around us day by day, rather than imposing one's own view on the weight of the world. May the reflection that today reveals itself in a soft voice find space in our days, so that we may transform intention into presence, idea into action, dream into coexistence. For at the core of our humanity, what truly sustains us is the certainty that we are capable of creating with our hands the world we desire, not only with words that pass. And if each of us cultivates, with patience, the practice of daily kindness, we will discover that the true secret of change does not lie in grand isolated gestures, but in the repetition of simple acts that, over time, reveal a life worth living and sharing. The rest comes as a consequence: more kindness, more understanding, more ability to smile amid difficulties, more openness to listen, more willingness to serve. And thus, life grounds itself on a more stable base, in a more respectful coexistence, in a community that little by little becomes a space of rest for the tired heart and a meeting place for hope that does not tire. And inviting you, therefore, to make your next action not only a quick response to a momentary need, but a continuous commitment to the dignity of those who cross your path. Let us move forward with quiet faith in this practice. May today offer a simple gesture that can be repeated tomorrow and the next day, until repetition transforms our way of being into something that inspires others to choose the good as well. Not necessary to be perfect, nor to know everything. It is enough to stay present, be faithful to what you believe, and act with kindness. May life, in its sweetness that crosses time, recognize this line of action that extends from our inner self to the world, bringing with it the certainty that even in the darkest days, goodness still has room to be born, to grow, and to illuminate the path for those who come after us. And may we, together, walk in this direction, step by step, trusting that each ordinary gesture carries the capacity to make life more human, more peaceful, more whole. Share this video with someone who might benefit.